going to go Objects, and then to our catalog. And again, this is the first time I've drawn any cabinets in this room, so it pops up this options window. In this case, I'm just going to do a quick selection. We'll just call alder with natural maple, Euro box. We'll call this a, let's call it an Abingdon AA. Finish with flat sheen. This time I'm going to call it standard distressing. Drawer boxes, let's go dovetail maple. And edge banding, I'm going to leave it as mill option. I don't want any pegs. Oh, what the heck, let's put some on there. Let's put pegs on. Door panel details I'm going to leave alone though. Then I'm going to come over here and pick a, let's see, let's pick something different today. Let's do a Churchill flat panel, and we'll pick, again, not the block front, not the wide rail. Sometimes you do want to pick the block front or the wide rail if the majority of your job fits, if most of the drawer fronts, I should say, on your job fit that description, then go ahead and pick it. But most of the time I recommend to people to pick the middle one, the narrow rail 5-piece drawer front. And I'll kind of show you later why that is. It has to do with defaults and overrides and making sure that you have, that it actually has a drawer front rendered and priced for you. Sometimes some sizes will cause some problems, and I'll show that later, so you don't have to worry about it now. Churchill there, and again we're going to go through alder 5 edge is what I want, and alder, I got to change that edge detail. It's important to look at these too, because I wish that when you pick these it would always pick the same default, but it doesn't. It kind of has a mind of its own sometimes. So you have to always make sure and inspect these and make sure that you have selected the edge detail and the wood and the raised panel detail. In this case we're a flat panel, so there is no raised panel detail. The inner edge profile again is static. That is dependent on the door style. So a Churchill is always going to be a C inner edge profile. So I'm just going to hit finish. So that's quick setup for a room. At this point I'm going to just drop some cabinets in really quickly. I'm just going to do a very fast room layout. I haven't thought about this layout at all. This is just kind of on the fly here. So if I do something really dumb from a design standpoint, hopefully you'll forgive me. Corner cabinets, again, remember, I don't want to snap to the left corner, I want to snap to the right side of the corner. So now one thing I didn't cover very much yesterday, we covered dragging cabinets out, but you can right click on cabinets and copy them. And I'm going to just do the same thing, and again I don't want to go, in this case that's the left wall, that's the right wall, and I want to go to the right wall. And I like to overlap my corners, just overlap them by the walls. That way I make sure it goes clear into the corner. So that's that. I'm going to actually put a different type. I'm going to put a blind corner cabinet in this one as well. With some special whatever hardware. And I can never remember which of these is which, so I like to look at the picture. That's the one I want, because I'm going to put this down here on this end. Now I can see that that's not going to work. That door is kind of in the way. And these blind corner cabinets, in fact, any of the cabinets that come in with an accessory, they are already sized at the minimum that you can get it. I cannot make that door smaller and have this Le Mans figure 8 unit work properly. So what I'm going to do is actually just shift this over, and I'm just going to eyeball it right now. That's way too far, but it's not letting me shift it here for some reason. So I'm going to just type in some dimensions. That's pretty close. I want to get it to where I can get a filler in here, 2 or 3 inches. Now, in my room list, I have room 1 and room 1, copy 1. I don't want those names to stay that way. So we're going to go back now to these room buttons. Before we talked about the bottom half of this room button, going down here and selecting Davis Mill and Cabinet to re-enter our specifications. But the top half of this room button is where we did our layout for our walls. And remember, I set that up 3048, 456. The only reason that carried over here is because I copied that room. Had I made a new room, these would be back to whatever my system defaults were. So the layout tab we've already shown. The general tab, though, here I'm going to call this master bath, if I can type. Master bath. All right, now I'm going to switch back over to the kitchen. And again, it takes a second. top half of the room button, and we will call this kitchen. Now I know what I'm after. Now, when you send a job into us for pre-production review, part of our cut listing process, something we have to do for our reports to turn out properly, we have to rename your rooms for you. Not really rename. All we do is we add room numbering to the beginning of it. So I will add, sometimes you'll see it come back from us and the room numbering will be there. It's important that we do the room number and then a dash and then the room name without any spaces for our reports to work properly. So if you want to do that beforehand, you're more than welcome to. Just be aware that if you don't do that, when we send you back a pre-production review, it may have the numbering on it, because we do have to do that for part of our process. So now that I've got those in, the next thing I like to do is put my fillers in. So I'm just going to go to my fillers and I'll pick a combo flat filler styled filler. And again, we're going to cover that more in depth today. I'll show you what that exactly means. I'm going to change it to 3 inches or 76 millimeters, and then I'm going to set my clearance at 0, but I really want to set that into the wall, so I'm going to say a -1.5 inches, 38 millimeters. Let's go back over here then. I'm going to save the job at this point. That's a pretty quick save. These files really, in fact, let me come back out here. That file, this is the one we're working on here. If I right click that and pick properties, file size, we're only about 1.25 megabytes. That's still very emailable. You'll notice in Cabinet Vision layouts that your file size is actually pretty reasonable. You can get fairly big jobs with a lot of information in them. Your file size will stay fairly small. However, when you start generating drawings, the CAD lines in Cabinet Vision take up memory. For whatever reason, I don't know if the CAD system is just not super efficient or what, but it takes a lot of system resources, so that file size will get bigger and your system will run slower on those jobs the more drawings you have in there. We'll cover drawings here later on. Now, one of the things I wanted to cover today was our other catalogs. I'm going to use part of that right now. We'll come back to it here in a minute, but I'm just going to go to the appliances and structural, go to appliances. Let's pick a range, and I want to pick a wolf, 36-inch wolf range. I'm just going to plop it down here. This is a terrible layout, but then let's see. The other thing I need is my sink cabinet. So I'm going to come back here to my catalog, base, sink cabinets, and I'm going to pick a BSF, or one with 2 doors and a false front. Now, on this wall, I need a 3-foot wide sink cabinet. So I'm just going to, however, like that. Now, but I want to center that cabinet on that wall. So I'm going to go up here. The wall is 4,200. So I know that 2,100 is half of that, but just to illustrate this, I'm going to say from the center position of that cabinet, 4,200 divided by 2. So if you have a more complicated number there than 4,200, you can just have it automatically do the math for you, center the cabinet. So I can see that I've got some bogus stuff in my layout here, but like I said, I didn't think through the sizes of these at all before I started drawing this in. Job button, we kind of skipped that one. Job, really the only thing to access here, this is the same window you see when you start the program, or start the job file itself. The only thing to access here is the job name, PO number, and this client information. If you have a customer information but a different ship to address, you can fill those out as well. But that's really all. None of these sidebar buttons or any of these tabs really affect anything. If you want, I guess you could use this schedule button. I've never seen anybody use it, but you're welcome to. Same with this comment. The parameters, there's no reason for you to ever be in there. And these buttons down here will have no effect whatsoever on your job, so just ignore them completely. Because I want a wood panel on my dishwasher. Let's pick doors and decos and appliances with decos. And there's something about this that I want to show you. If I go to dishwashers, dishwasher deco full height door is what that means. Some of these may have a drawer front and a door, 2 drawers, and this is more of like a Fisher Paykel pull-out dishwasher. that kind of thing. But in this case, I'll just do a standard door on it. So that's the job button, room button we just showed. Modifications, we've showed a little bit of this. Copy room we've showed, delete room, and center room. The other two options, reverse room, does it work? Yeah, it works sometimes. Have I ever used it? Nope, not ever. The reason being, in fact, we'll just try it here just to see what happens. See if it crashes us here. In this case, it probably will work okay. This is to make a mirror image if you have a condo unit or something with an A side and a B side and they're exactly the same. Number one, oh, yep, there you go. You see some of the reasons why. See what my corner cabinets did? Bad stuff. So I don't like using the reverse room. It's buggy, so I would just avoid it. The quick room, same thing. It's going to basically ask you some generic layout questions. Oh, there I did. I crashed it. It's going to ask you some generic layout questions, and then it's going to autofill the cabinets for you. I just think it's a bad part of the program. Hopefully you can all still see me here. What I wanted to show you on this dishwasher deco that's important is if you look at the dimensions here, let me switch over to inches for you all. If I click on that cabinet, it's telling me 24 inches wide, 34 5/8 our standard base cabinet height, and the depth is 24 inches. Now, notice the dotted line around this, that is the dishwasher itself. The door is proud of that. One thing I have people do all the time is, let me copy this so I don't mess that one up. Number 7 then is the one I want to edit here. I have people all the time that when they're reading their report over here, they'll say, number 7, oh, that's my dishwasher. Oh, it's not supposed to be 34 5/8. It's supposed to be 30 inches tall, so they changed that height. And I only really need 7/8 in my depth. What I've just done, notice there's a note here. The size includes the appliance. The deco's just like a door on a cabinet. If I isolate this now, you'll see that my dishwasher is all messed up. And if I go back to the room level in the plan view, you see that it's back against the wall. So just be aware that when you use appliances with wood or veneer deco panels on them, the size is the appliance itself. The door is proud of that, just like any cabinet door would be. Basically all this is a cabinet with a door on it, and all the cabinet pieces have been hidden. That's how we make that object. So we'll just leave that alone for now. Then let's go ahead and put in a couple more cabinets here real fast. Let's do BD1. Now this one, notice it still fits in my opening here. I'm going to take it and just grow it to fit my opening. And then I'm going to add the other cabinets in a different method. I'm going to right click, insert object, BD3. I'll put that cabinet right here. Now this one, again, I can see the gap that's there. I could click on that cabinet, click and drag that over, or I could just go to my width and say plus 348. And it's going to still ask me right or left. I'm going to pick right and then hit enter. It fills up the gap. So you can do it either with the numbers or just drag your handles and overlap the adjacent cabinets. It's really important though that you get these. Sometimes what I'll see is something like this, where I see a funky dimension and I can tell that a cabinet has not been sized properly. And so it's good practice to look across this dimension line and say, oh, what's going on here? Why do I have this weird dimension? Well, because sometimes you won't notice it. And this is a really simple layout, so it's easy to see. But sometimes with a lot of cabinets going on, that's harder to see. This is a big red flag. So always watch out for those things. And again, in this case, we talked yesterday about even or odd millimeter increments. An odd millimeter increment is fine here because it's a 3-door bank. They're going to be whole numbers. It's not going to divide that in half. This sink cabinet, on the other hand, has 2 doors on it. If I made that 9/15, those doors would be half millimeter increment sizes, which is what we do not want. And we would have to make an edit if that happened. modifications. So that's pretty much everything here. Measure tools. These are fairly useful. I'm not going to cover them super in depth. The first one, which by the way, I can pick the down arrow here to select one of these two tools. Whichever one I select will then become my default. So now I just have to click on that tool. I'm going to show you the measure tool now. So let's select it as our default. We'll pick that tool. Now I can basically come in here and click between this point and this point. It just drew this blue line here, but up in the left upper corner, you can see horizontally it was 2,900 and change millimeters, and vertical I went straight across, so there's no change. All that is a quick measurement. If I zoom in or out, that blue line is gone. If I push escape, the blue line's gone and I lose my measurement. So that's only a temporary measuring tool. Also, if you noticed, I just eyeballed that. I just kind of clicked randomly there and somewhere over here, kind of guessing. And that's okay if you just need kind of an approximate. But if you need an exact, you can always turn your snap points on. And this is where these snap points come in handy. So now I'm going to pick my measure tool, snap from the front of that door to a point on the front of that door. Now I know exactly 2932 is my dimension. And if I take 4200 minus 610 minus 610, that should be my, well, I guess plus my door sizes too, because my 610 millimeters or 24 inches is just the cabinet depth, not including the doors. That's actually pretty important to remember. Let's see. Cut, copy, paste. One thing I did not talk about yesterday. I kind of mentioned it here this morning, right-clicking on a cabinet and copying it like that. Let's say though that this cabinet's not here, and we realize we positioned this appliance and these two cabinets in the wrong place, and I want to move them over to the side. I can click on that cabinet and then change its right clearance to 0. And then this cabinet's right clearance to 0. You see how this can be kind of time consuming. So typically I don't want to have to do this across a whole line of cabinets. The faster way of doing this is to select one of the cabinets, then draw a box around them. Notice the little, it may be hard to see on your monitors again, but small dotted line, red line around that. On your keyboard, just standard Windows shortcuts. Control X is cut, Control C is copy, Control V is paste. So with those cabinets selected, Control X should cut them. Now Control V will paste those back in. Notice it's got one great big cabinet here. Now I'm going to overlap it back over here. I'm going to set this back to where I had originally had them. So it takes a second for it to all calculate, but because I overlapped this cabinet, it moved all three of those as a group. So that cut, copy, paste can be pretty handy. Depending on, I find it particularly useful when I have an island drawn and then I realize that something's wrong on my walls or they need to change the length. So what I'll do with them is I'll say, well, this layout's bogus, so I'm going to take this wall and just move it out here. Now what I'm going to do is go and put a new wall in. And in this case, we're going to just change this to an island. So I'm going to move it out here. And in this case, I want an actual physical wall there, and we're gonna set this thing to be 48 inches tall. Let's go 42. So then I'm going to come over here, and I don't really want this cabinet anymore, but that one, maybe on my wall tool still, so it wasn't letting me click on it. So I have to hit my escape key. Click on that cabinet, Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it. So I can move things around that way. Now I'm going to just take my peninsula wall and delete it. Then I know this isn't in the right place, so we're going to kind of move it around here and eyeball it. There are ways to be more precise in how to do that, but I'm not going to cover those right now. All right, back to the appliances and structural catalog. There are a few things in there that you might find useful. Appliances are pretty obvious. If I go in, appliances and structural catalog. If I go to appliances, I've got pretty much whatever I want. Now, in Cabinet Vision, when you first install Cabinet Vision, it will come with several other catalogs besides this. Some of you will have them showing here, some of you will not. On certain computers I've deleted those extra catalogs, some of you I've left them in place. It's okay to use those extra catalogs for things like appliances, stuff like that. Just know that anything entered in any catalog other than Davis Millen Cabinet or Davis Custom Closets does nothing for pricing or for your order to us. It will only be for rendering. We cannot process orders placed or items placed in an order from any other catalog other than these top two. These bottom two are used only for rendering purposes. Now, Cabinet Vision does include a couple of furniture catalogs and some appliance catalogs. The problem is that a lot of those are very hard or impossible to shrink or grow width, height, depth. They're very set in their dimensions. Now, what I've done in our appliance and structural catalog is copied most of those into this. So really a lot of this is a duplicate of what you have in those other two catalogs anyway. But there are some in here that have been set up that are more user-friendly, more resizable. So I would always recommend using the things that are in here, because you'll have everything in this Davis Appliance and Structural catalog that is in the other standard Cabinet Vision ones. There's just some improvements made to some of those parts. It's not all of them. Some of them are still kind of moody, but you'll get better results out of this catalog. There are some other things in here. Electrical fixtures. I have people sometimes that will render light fixtures or light switches, outlets, things like that. If you want to plan where those go in your drawings, those are available. I personally don't ever use them, but I know there are a lot of people that do. Plumbing fixtures is a common one. Sinks. And in fact, I think we'll get to this here a little later, but we'll just kind of skip that for now. Sinks, toilets, bathtubs, showers, all that stuff is in there. Structural, doors, windows, posts, things like that. This is one that's used fairly commonly. So I'm going to come in here and just pick in my window category. Notice there's several different categories here. These are, again, for rendering only. So I'm just going to pick a single pane, but there's something I want to show you about these windows. Notice I can't, if I try to click on that window, I'm clicking on the wall itself. That window is only selected by clicking in front of it on the wall. It's basically a cabinet that is inset into the wall. That's how Cabinet Vision recognizes a window object. So if I click right here, Cabinet Vision's asking me, do you want the sink base or do you want the window? In this case, I want the window. So there it selects my window. Now the easier way to select that is from the elevation view, because if I'm here I can just click on it and I can resize, I can drag and drop however I want, or I can come over here and let's call it a 4040 window. And I'm just going to eyeball it here. I'm not going to worry about working on the math to center that and over the sink and that kind of thing, but since we're making up this room as we go anyway. Alright, so what I wanted to show you on this window is, and this is unique to our catalog over the automatic windows that are in Cabinet Vision, we have different casing types and different casing widths. So the window size is the actual window. Over here though I have additional attributes, and in fact on several of our cabinets you're going to see this as well. Certain objects will have additional controls besides just their width, height, and depth. You will have different sidebar parameters, and in this case we do. So casing type, I'm going to call it 0. 0 means no casing, and notice the second parameter here went away. If I change it back to 1, that's a miter type casing. Here I can change go to 3-inch casing, or let's go really big, let's go 6-inch casing. Whatever you want to do on it. Casing type 2 is more of an arts and crafts kind of look, I guess. And again, I can change the widths of these casing width and the header width independently. Casing type 3, I believe, has some rosettes on it. Yeah, so you can kind of change how you want to do this. The plinth width, we'll make it really big, and then let's change our reveal here. We'll go 5/8 of an inch reveal to make those plinths a little bigger. So you can kind of customize these however you want. Again, if I go back to 0, I get no molding at all around it. So doors will operate exactly the same way. I don't really have a good place to put a door in this layout, but I'll just put one on anyway. Standard doors, double hung, pocket doors, whatever you want in here. We'll go standard door. Let's go left hand swing in. Just And again, just like a window, to select that, I do not click on the door itself. That's going to select the wall. I want to click in front of the door. Now, if I go to the elevation view of that wall, again, the same thing here. Let's call that a 30-inch wide door. And door style, in this case, I not only can control the casing type, which is similar to the windows, same numbers do the same things, but in this case I can change the door style as well, so I can change how that door renders. Those two don't look like they changed. One of them is a wood panel, one of them's a, oh, actually there it went. Some of them are wood panels, some of them are glass panel doors. So you can kind of see the different rendering methods you have there just on the same object. Those doors will show in your 3D. Looks like I've got some funny colors rendering there, but usually we just do line drawings anyway. Oh, and notice my island wall is floating up there in space too. I never changed the height of that. I actually changed its length. I meant to change its height. Let's go 1068 on its height and 1500 on its width, something like that. That looks more like an island. Anyway, hopefully you get the gist of it there. So structural stuff, doors, windows. You also have some sort of lesser used things, but that are kind of handy when you need them. If I go into structural, I can go to structural, another subfolder here called structural, and I have Soffit, which will be an actual, this is different than Cabinet Vision Soffit. This is more like traditional Soffit that you see actually popping out into the room. So I'm just going to plop that on the wall. Not sure why I did that. It's limiting me there. We'll try it a different way. There it goes. I love it when Cabinet Vision tries to think for you. There are some times when it does that sort of thing, and I'll show you as we go on. There's sometimes if changing that by dragging the side doesn't work, type in the dimension, and that will work a lot of the time. So we're going to call this deeper too. We'll go 24 inches deep. Then let's see, square beams or posts. You can do a beam across this room, and I can just set it in like this, and we'll call that. Let's see, its depth in this case I'm going to call the 4200, so it'll go all the way across the room. And let's do a round post. Say we've got a log. Now notice that chirped at me there. It wouldn't let me place that because I was off the wall. I'm going to use my control key in this case. This is a case where I don't mind doing that. I'm going to use my control and force it over here. And then let's call this thing 12 inches. Notice it skewed, so you can change it so it's oblong if you want. Although most of the time they're not. So there's that. Now I can go back to my 3D. We see our beam, we see our soffit, we see the round post. There's square posts. I believe there's a round beam also, yeah, log beam. So there's all kinds of things you can do in your renderings. Don't be afraid to draw like it is. Although I'll give that with one word of warning. The more objects you have in a Cabinet Vision program, the more bogged down it will tend to get. It will have more points and more geometry. In fact, if I go down here and turn on my snap to points, you'll notice, especially on my range in this case, when I click on this, you'll see a whole bunch of little white dots there. Those are little snap points that we can use for CAD lines. The more of those there are in your drawing, the slower your computer will run while that drawing is opened. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to turn those off. And in fact, normally I recommend keeping this turned off unless you need points to snap to if you're drawing CAD lines. So, all right, so that's a layout for us. Structural, doors, windows, posts, things like that. This is one that's used fairly commonly. So I'm going to come in here and just pick in my window category. Notice there's several different categories here. These are, again, for rendering only. So I'm just going to pick a single pane, but there's something I want to show you about these windows. Notice I can't, if I try to click on that window, I'm clicking on the wall itself. That window is only selected by clicking in front of it on the wall. It's basically a cabinet that is inset into the wall. That's how Cabinet Vision recognizes a window object. So if I click right here, Cabinet Vision's asking me, do you want the sink base or do you want the window? In this case, I want the window. So there it selects my window. Now, the easier way to select that is from the elevation view, because if I'm here, I can just click on it, and I can resize. I can drag and drop however I want, or I can come over here and let's call it a 4040 window. And I'm just going to eyeball it here. I'm not going to worry about working on the math to center that and over the sink and that kind of thing. But since we're making up this room as we go anyway. All right, so what I wanted to show you on this window is, and this is unique to our catalog over the automatic windows that are in Cabinet Vision. We have different casing types and different casing widths. So the window size is the actual window. Over here, though, I have additional attributes. And in fact, on several of our cabinets, you're going to see this as well. Certain objects will have additional controls besides just their width, height, and depth. You will have different sidebar parameters. And in this case, we do. So casing type, I'm going to call it 0. 0 means no casing. And notice the second parameter here went away. If I change it back to 1, that's a miter type casing. Here I can change go to 3-inch casing, or let's go really big. Let's go 6-inch casing. Whatever you want to do on it. Casing type 2 is more of an arts and crafts kind of look, I guess. And again, I can change the widths of these, casing width and the header width independently. Casing type 3, I believe, has some rosettes on it. Yeah. So you can kind of change how you want to do this. The plinth width, we'll make it really big. And then let's change our reveal here. We'll go 5/8 of an inch reveal to make those plinths a little bigger. So you can kind of customize these however you want. Again, if I go back to 0, I get no molding at all around it. So doors will operate exactly the same way. I don't really have a good place to put a door in this layout, but I'll just put one on anyway. Standard doors, double hung, pocket doors, whatever you want in here. We'll go standard door. Let's go left-hand swing in. And again, just like a window, to select that, I do not click on the door itself. That's going to select the wall. I want to click in front of the door. Now, if I go to the elevation view of that wall, again, the same thing here. Let's call that a 30-inch wide door. And door style, in this case, I not only can control the casing type, which is similar to the windows, same numbers do the same things, but in this case, I can change the door style as well. So I can change how that door renders. Those two don't look like they changed. One of them is a wood panel, one of them's actually there it went. Some of them are wood panels, some of them are glass panel doors. So you can kind of see the different rendering methods you have there just on the same object. Those doors will show in your 3D. Looks like I've got some funny colors rendering there, but usually we just do line drawings anyway. I can go to structural, another subfolder here called structural, and I have Soffit, which will be an actual, this is different than Cabinet Vision Soffit. This is more like traditional Soffit that you see actually popping out into the room. So I'm just going to plop that on the wall. Not sure why I did that. It's limiting me there. We'll try it a different way. There it goes. I love it when Cabinet Vision tries to think for you. There are some times when it does that sort of thing, and I'll show you as we go on. There's sometimes if changing that by dragging the side doesn't work, type in the dimension, and that will work a lot of the time. So we're going to call this deeper too. We'll go 24 inches deep. Square beams or posts, you can do a beam across this room, and I can just set it in like this, and we'll call that. Let's see, its depth in this case I'm going to call the 4200, so it'll go all the way across the room. And let's do a round post. Say we've got a log. Now notice that chirped at me there. It wouldn't let me place that because I was off the wall. I'm going to use my control key in this case. This is a case where I don't mind doing that. I'm going to use my control and force it over here. And then let's call this thing 12 inches. Notice it skewed, so you can change it so it's oblong if you want. Well, most of the time they're not. So there's that. Now I can go back to my 3D. We see our beam, we see our soffit, we see the round post. There's square posts. I believe there's a round beam also, yeah, log beam. So there's all kinds of things you can do in your renderings. Don't be afraid to draw like it is. Although I'll give that with one word of warning. The more objects you have in a Cabinet Vision program, the more bogged down it will tend to get. It will have more points and more geometry. In fact, if I go down here and turn on my snap to points, you'll notice, especially on my range in this case, when I click on this, you'll see a whole bunch of little white dots there. Those are little snap points that we can use for CAD lines. The more of those there are in your drawing, the slower your computer will run while that drawing is opened. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to turn those off. And in fact, normally I recommend keeping this turned off unless you need points to snap to if you're drawing CAD lines. So, all right, so that's a layout for us. The other catalog in here, wood embellishments. I'm going to cover this very, very briefly. These are, notice the note here, these will not price. You have to talk to us here to make sure to have us get a current price on it. There's just too many of these for us to keep pricing totally current on, and your wood species depends on or determines the price, lots of different determining factors. So what these are is basically you have inkable and hardware resources, corbels, you have different legs and feet, so I can come in, all kinds of different decorative elements that you can use. Let's go to let's see, onlays is another popular one. Onlays, if I want to pick some acanthus ones, there's basically all of Inkable's catalog is in here. So if I pick this, and I don't know what any of these mean off the top of my head, but you can decorate up your layouts. Say a range hood or something. Again, these objects have, in fact, let me drag one of these out. Let me find a bigger one like that. I'm going to drag it out. If I look at that object and put these points on, there's hundreds of points on this object in geometry. So that object will slow your drawing down considerably. You'll start to notice this, particularly when we start transferring this to drawings. You'll really see that happen. Your file size will increase. Let's save this job then. I'm gonna click save. Now, if you remember when let's see, another question, the embellishments. Kevin, if you in the renderings, it may be like that door where I had kind of some funky colors showing up over here like this. Notice the door's light, and then the rosettes here for some reason turn out the color of the exterior of the cabinetry. That's kind of a rendering glitch here. When you're talking about actual finishing of those, yes, that will be part of the pricing mods we would give you, is that it would include finishing that decorative element, that corbel or that onlay or turning or carving or whatever. Finish it to match the exterior of the cabinetry, whatever finish you've selected for the room. All right, let's save the job then. What I was going to say before, if you remember when we set this job up, we named it the Smith job. So I'm going to come in here and click save, and I'm going to save this out to my desktop. And notice it recommends Smith. So whatever I type in my job name, that's going to be the recommended file name. I'm not sure if you can see it on your screens because of the toolbar. Hopefully this will make it show up here. If you notice here, Smith layout, so at the top of your toolbar, or top of your Cabinet Vision window, it will also show you what the file name is you're working on. Now, if I want to change this at some point, and I do this all the time, if the client comes back and says, no, we axed that beam, and we axed that post, and we're going to change the island layout, we're going to do away with the island. Now, I'm going to go back, and a lot of people will just hit save again. I would recommend always, if the client comes back and does a revision, do save as. And call this, let's call it revised, whatever today is. I don't even remember the date today. July 8th, so we're going to go 7/8/2015. I've seen that date done several different ways. I've seen people do 7.8, 0.15. I would advise not to use decimal places. And in fact, I would avoid using in any of your file names. We see all the time stuff like this, Smith #1. Avoid symbols, the number sign, the @ sign, dollar signs, percentages, ampersand, whatever symbols like this that you have in Windows can cause problems when you save a file, because it's going to save that in the file name. Those are, from a programming standpoint, those are wildcards used in Windows and well, back even in old DOS operating systems. So you want to avoid symbols like that. It's okay. Another date strategy I've seen used is 07, whatever it was, now I forgot the date already, 06, 2015, something like that. Whatever you want to do, just avoid using anything other than underscores or hyphens. Those are the only two symbols really that are acceptable in a file name. So however you want to do it, save as. So now if I minimize this, I save these to my desktop. Now I have, kind of hard to tell with that green background I have these two, there we go, background changed for us on command. These two file names. These are, if you were to right click and pick properties on these windows, these are CVJ files. That is a Cabinet Vision job file. Sometimes what you'll see after you've had a file open for a while, depending on how you set your autosave in Cabinet Vision. Let me go over to Cabinet Vision really quick and I can show you that. Preferences, right here, autosave. Mine's set to not autosave for 60 minutes. For most of you, I would not recommend doing that. I'm kind of OCD or finicky about my programs telling me when to save. I don't like being bossed around by software, so I set it a long time. That's a disadvantage though if you are connecting remotely to a computer to do this, or if you tend to have crashes on your computer, things like that, because you will lose your information if you don't manually save. I tend to save often, so I don't worry about the autosave. I don't like it surprising me with a save when I'm right in the middle of something, so that's why I do that. But once that autosaves, the whole point of that is that out here, wherever you saved this file at, there will also be one called Smith Revised 0706 2015 Backup, or .bak instead of .cvj. That is a direct copy of the file that you are working on. If your file happens to go corrupt for some reason, you can recover the backup copy. Hopefully that makes sense. So I would recommend not deleting the backup copy. Sometimes people will see them and they're like, I don't know what this thing is, so they delete it. You want to keep both of those copies in your job folder. However you do that. So specifically about these tools. I talked this morning about Control X, Control C, and Control V for your cut, copy, and paste commands. This clipboard will do the same thing. I'm just a keyboard shortcut guy, so I don't use this button very often, but you're welcome to. If I click on that cabinet, let's do this one. Come up here, copy, and then I deselect and say paste. It just picked that cabinet. That seems a lot slower to me than Control C, Control V, copy, paste. So up to you, however you want to do it. If the keyboard shortcuts are not your thing, you have the tool right here. Zoom tools here. You got 3 different tools in it. Window, I can click on that and zoom right to a specific place. Zoom out, I don't ever use because I just do that with my mouse. I think that's kind of a silly feature. I can scroll with my mouse just fine. I don't want to click 100 times to zoom out where I need to. Or I can hit all and it just goes to the default view. I do use window pretty frequently though. If I need to zoom in on one place, that's the quickest way to do that. This obviously is your wireframe, your fill, or your texture. I would recommend not ever really using your texture mode. It's kind of a waste of system resources. It will make your computer run very slowly, especially if you're trying to draw with texturing turned on. Some of the materials do have textures applied to them for people that do like that kind of thing. In version 9, the next version of Cabinet Vision that we haven't released yet, it actually may come more in handy. It's a much faster rendering engine in that version, so hopefully that will help people if you like to see the textures. Most of the time I recommend fill mode or wireframe mode, and if I'm in plan or elevation, I always leave mine in wireframe mode. But in 3Ds, I do like to look at it in fill mode, and I'll show you a couple of reasons why here. And in fact, let's go to fill mode here real fast. This gets a little hard because I can't see my cabinets with that soffit, so I'm going to delete that soffit in this case just to illustrate a couple of things. Notice the colors. In fact, let's go to texture mode and just see what it does here. Yeah, it's really not even doing much of anything in this case. So we'll stick on fill mode. The yellow color is only there because I picked natural maple melamine. If I change this to white, alder with white melamine, it takes a second for it to rebuild all the cabinets. There, I see it change. So now I have white melamine. Notice the color of the core though. The color of the boards is green. The color of our melamine in the core is not green. It's a fur core. The green is a color coding cheat that we've put in our system, so you can kind of see a couple of things. Green means melamine, two-sided melamine. If I want to, in fact, let's put some more cabinets on the walls over here. Oh, I've got a door. Yeah, sure, shrink fit. Let's kill this door actually to get it out of our way. All right, so in this case, two things that would be a red flag to me is I would spin this room around and I'd say, well, besides the obvious layout issues, I've got a gap right here. We're not going to worry about that right now. But I see that this cabinet should have had a finished end on it. And I can see that very easily from this view because I see the white melamine. In the plan view, that's a little harder to see other than this color coding. That's why I do like turning the rendering mode on in plan view so I can see where my finished ends are. I haven't really shown how to customize the cabinets. We're going to go over that here in a little bit, but I'm going to right click on that cabinet and say finished end right. Two things happen there. I get a little finished end arrow, which will also show in my elevation view, by the way. Notice my render mode didn't stick there either. That render mode is specific to which view you are on. So if I go back to plan, I should still be on render mode, but my elevation is not unless I turn it on. Also in this mode, my snap points are turned on, and I want those off. There, and you see the pegs that we put on too earlier in the discussion. So here I see my finished end arrow. In 3D, I see a finished end, and in my plan view, I see the arrow, and I see this pink color. The pink color denotes poly material. Poly is melamine one side, veneer the other side. Now, most of you probably got an email from me here in the last week or two about the poly materials. Poly materials, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it here, but poly materials are only available with white and natural maple melamine. With white, we have a few more wood species options. We have alder cherry, knotty alder, knotty cherry, white oak, walnut, red oak, a couple of other very, very simple common woods. In natural maple, really all we have access to is alder and knotty alder, cherry and knotty cherry in natural maple. Everything else, every other species or any other interior color, backwoods sycamore or a custom melamine color, there is no poly available unless we buy huge quantities of it, which most jobs can't justify. So in most cases, what we're going to do is that piece is going to default to a two-sided veneer, and we'll finish the inside the same as the outside unless you specify otherwise. And the email I sent out kind of detailed that stuff. So if you have more questions about that, we can talk about that at a later time. But so this is a melamine interior cabinet with a finished end on it, a poly finished end. But if I have a veneer cabinet, let's go back here. We're going to pick a base open shelf. Let's do a wall open shelf, actually. I'll just plop it here on the wall. Notice the blue core in this one. The blue represents two-sided veneer. So in this case, we can tell that we have melamine, veneer, and poly materials. And so at a glance in your room view, if I zoom out like that, I can see at a glance where my finished ends are and where my finished veneer cabinets. Plus I see the color of this. So the rendering mode is really handy. In 3D mode, it's really handy too, to be able to see where I'm missing finished ends. plus I see conflicts or missing parts, or sometimes in an island I'll see that the toe kick doesn't work, and I can spin this clear upside down to look underneath the cabinets and see how they work, however like that. So alright, so let's get back over this then. So that's render mode. I'm going to go back to wireframe mode. Window mode, I don't see people use very often, but I'll show it to you just in case you like it. Let's split it this way. That looks really awkward. I'm going to slide this over. So what I'm going to do here is go my report view here and a 3D view here. And then now if I take this cabinet, in fact let's pan around in 3D. So I see my cabinet over here. This cabinet is cabinet number 10. I can see on my sidebar window when I select it. Over here I see that cabinet number 10. If I come over here and put this in order entry mode, cabinet number 10, if I change that to 762 or 30 inches wide, we should see it change in my order entry view, my plan view, and my 3D views. It may take a second for it to... There. The views are not refreshing. There it goes. So you can kind of see how that windowed mode works. Most of the time I don't use this because unless you have a really big monitor. If you have a big monitor, this is a great option. But unless you do, this window mode doesn't give you a whole lot of use. Unfortunately, this does not support multiple monitors. I'd love it if it did, if you could put your report page on one monitor and your drawing on another monitor. It'd be great, but it doesn't support that. Alright, we kind of very briefly talked about layers. Again, I can go, yesterday I think I showed you the white versus the black, but if I go to a low detail layer, you'll notice how much simpler the cabinets get. If you can draw and design this way, your system will zoom, it will pan, it will drop cabinets, everything will operate faster in the lower detail. The higher detail that you add to your drawing, the more time it will take for Cabinet Vision to render everything. I tend to draw with all details on, but you don't have to. You can put it. In fact, medium is a pretty good detail. It gives you, you see your door profile still. You see accessories that are in the cabinets. You just don't see the machining and other things. I tend to keep it on high detail because I need to see the tool paths and the machining of each of these cabinets. So these little yellow squares are our little handholds that we route in the top of the cabinets. Most of you have seen. So let's see. So that's different layers. You can create your own layer by going to this button here, Layers. I can copy one of these and make a new layer. You can customize layers by right-clicking in the background, going to Properties, and then to Layers. In this Layers window here, you will see a light bulb, a pencil, and then a color bar and a line. The line is telling you what type of line. Do you want it to show as a dotted line, dash line, a combo, whatever. I have everything showing as a solid line in my system, but you can customize that. The color, obviously, is the color the line renders. So if I come down here to Operations, in my case, that's a yellow. If I change that to pink, it's going to change. Once we're done here, it's going to change all these yellow handholds to pink. The other thing here is if I want to turn something off, I can check the light bulb. The light bulb will be what you visually see on your screen. The pencil is what you print when we send this to a drawing. So you can turn off one and leave the one on. You can turn them both on or both off, however you like it. So let's just hit OK here and we'll see that machining now turn to pink. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's your layers. There's a lot more to it than that, but for now that's all we're going to really worry about. So that's different layers. You can create your own layer by going to this button here, Layers. I can copy one of these and make a new layer. You can customize layers by right-clicking in the background, going to Properties, and then to Layers. In this Layers window here, you will see a light bulb, a pencil, and then a color bar and a line. The line is telling you what type of line. Do you want it to show as a dotted line, dash line, a combo, whatever. I have everything showing as a solid line in my system, but you can customize that. The color, obviously, is the color of the line renders. So if I come down here to operations, in my case, that's a yellow. If I change that to pink, it's going to change. Once we're done here, it's going to change all these yellow handholds to pink. The other thing here is if I want to turn something off, I can check the light bulb. The light bulb will be what you visually see on your screen. The pencil is what you print when we send this to a drawing. So you can turn off one and leave the one on. You can turn them both on or both off, however you like it. So let's just hit OK here, and we'll see that machining now turn to pink. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's your layers. There's a lot more to it than that, but for now that's all we're going to really worry about. Just below that is your room. Now, in this case, all we have is room 1 selected, so these arrows won't do anything because I don't have any other additional rooms. But this button here will make a new room. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's a new room. So then I come in here. Let's lay out a vanity wall. Again, I'm going to set, just out of habit, I'm going to say wall end and wall end. Escape, escape, go back here and center my room. So that is a quick vanity layout. One thing I do see fairly common is if people have 2 or 3 little vanities and they're all pretty much the same, people will draw all of the rooms like this in one room. That may be easier for your drawing purposes, but it actually is kind of a bad thing. I would recommend not doing that. It makes it really hard to get drawings and renderings. You can't separate out rooms if the client, it just is bad practice, so try to avoid it if you can. From room 1, but I don't want these cabinets. There's not a really clean way of doing that, but what I am going to do is we're going to skip these 2 buttons here for a second. I'm going to go over to modifications to copy room. Doesn't look like it did anything, but now I have room 1 copy in here. What I'm going to do is come in here. Once it switches, it takes a second to switch rooms sometimes. So I'm going to pick that wall, highlight all walls, hit delete. Now I have a blank room, but if I draw that same layout, center my room, same layout, but now if I go in, Davis Mill and Cabinet, it lets me right in. Those parameters have already been selected for this room. One thing I have heard people do is if you have a, we've had one client before where he had a sort of a builder line, he called it, where the contractor only offered the clients 5 of our doors and like 6 or 8 of our colors, that kind of a thing. If you have a situation like that, or if you just have a style that you tend to use as a preliminary layout or specifications for a room, if you say by default we're always going to build or bid Naughty Alder with natural finish on it, you could set up a job with no walls in it. All you do is enter the information on this screen and on this screen, hit finish, then save your job as a template file. Then all you do is open that template and then copy that room however many times you need, do a save as, whatever your job name is, and then you have a quick, easy template without having to go through all of this information every time. It's not that this takes a super long time, it's just a quick shortcut for you if you need that. Snap marks is another one. This one is used less frequently. I'm going to turn off my snap points. Snap marks, I can basically just place them wherever I need on my screen. And I can use these dimensions to place them. A lot of times what people will do is say, notice they just disappeared on me. That's because I have snap to marks turned off, though. If I turn that on, all those snap marks will reappear. And now those become something I can measure from this way, or I can draw my CAD lines in. We haven't talked about CAD at all. I'll just show you very quickly in this case. Now I can draw CAD lines, have a dot to dot here, CAD lines between these points. Okay. The reason these are helpful, let me exit out of my CAD mode, and I'm going to actually click on this reset ruler. What that's going to do is kill all of my snap marks that are on my screen. The reason those are valuable is if I turn snap points on, kind of confusing, snap to points and snap to marks. Points are the white dots, marks are the ones I intentionally place with this tool. So the reason these are useful is I can come over here and turn on my snap points and then use my snap to marks tool. I'm going to set one there at the front of that cabinet. Now I'm going to come out and I'm going to say I need to have, I'm going to use my tab key to go in the upper left corner of my screen. Horizontally, I need 42 inches here, and vertically I want 0, and hit enter. Now that gives me a snap point right here. Now I'm going to say I need, let's see, vertical, let's go 24 inches overall, minus 90 degrees. So that's the depth of my island cabinets, and then I want to have, just guessing here, we'll call this 1068, and I want 0 degrees. Okay, so now what I've done there is given myself snap marks. All those are good for is snapping either CAD lines to, or I can snap a wall to them, which is where this is really handy. So with my snap to marks tool on, I can now draw a wall from there to there. I'm going to change this one to back to a peninsula wall. Now I know I have my 42 inches clearance here. I didn't measure this side or this side. We were just kind of eyeballing it, but you get the idea. You can use these snap to marks to position walls. That's where that tool is most helpful. Most of the time I use this measure tool. I don't use the snap marks very often, but now I'm going to clear them off, and I'm going to turn off the snap to marks, and I'm going to turn off snap to points. CAD mode, and I'm going to actually click on this reset ruler. What that's going to do is kill all of my snap marks that are on my screen. The reason those are valuable is if I turn snap points on, kind of confusing, snap to points and snap to marks. Points are the white dots, marks are the ones I intentionally place with this tool. So the reason these are useful is I can come over here and turn on my snap points and then use my snap to marks tool. I'm going to set one there at the front of that cabinet. Now I'm going to come out and I'm going to say I need to have, I'm going to use my tab key to go in the upper left corner of my screen. Horizontally, I need 42 inches here, and vertically I want 0, and hit enter. Now that gives me a snap point right here. Now I'm going to say I need, let's see, vertical, let's go 24 inches overall, minus 90 degrees. So that's the depth of my island cabinets, and then I want to have, just guessing here, we'll call this 1068, and I want 0 degrees. Okay, so now what I've done there is given myself snap marks. All those are good for is snapping either CAD lines to, or I can snap a wall to them, which is where this is really handy. So with my snap to marks tool on, I can now draw a wall from there to there. I'm going to change this one to back to a peninsula wall. Now I know I have my 42 inches clearance here. I didn't measure this side or this side. We were just kind of eyeballing it, but you get the idea. You can use these snap to marks to position walls. That's where that tool is most helpful. Most of the time I use this measure tool. I don't use the snap marks very often, but now I'm going to clear them off, and I'm going to turn off the snap to marks, and I'm going to turn off snap to points. The grid tool will snap to your grid. Again, on my system, I set my grid really huge so that it's not in the way, it's not cluttered up. If you like a grid to show, you can always right click in the background, properties, and I can change that to, in this case, 12 inches. So now I see that line. To me, that's very busy and kind of hard on my eyes, so I don't like it. Plus, when you're drawing now, you can use all these grid lines for snap points. I have never found a good reason for snap to grid myself, so I'm going to turn it off, and in fact I'm going to reset this to really big before I lose my mind staring at all those grids. I feel like I'm in a have to take a Dramamine to sit at my computer. I get motion sick looking at that. So so that's your snap marks there. Up here back on the ribbon bar, the object tree. I'm not really going to show much on this. Most of you will never use this. Just know that inside your room there are walls, and on those walls there are cabinets attached to those cabinets, and inside those cabinets there are parts that make up those cabinets, and inside those parts there are operations or holes that are drilled inside each of those operations. We use this stuff here internally. You do not need to mess with it. In fact, I would recommend you don't. You can mess some things up by playing with this. But I just want you to recognize the fact that it's here. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. But that's what this object tree toolbar is. The help menu has 3 things on it. The training information, I've never used that. In fact, I don't even know what it does. We'll try. We'll experiment. Oh yeah, it's going to go to their website to give you training opportunities. For all intents and purposes, you guys are welcome to come to us for training, and you don't have to pay for it. Cabinet Vision is going to charge you for it. So that's training information. E-support, you should all be able to get on this. E-support's a really handy tool. It's basically a web forum to come in to ask questions. I got in here just this morning to ask a question. I haven't heard back yet, but usually people respond to things quite well. The one word of warning I would give with using this forum is that our catalog that you'll be using is kind of unique in Cabinet Vision. So sometimes you'll post a question on there specifically, if it's specific to our catalog or how our catalog functions in Cabinet Vision, nobody's going to be able to help you on the forum. The best place is to come to us. But if you have a general question on how do you make your renderings look nicer, if you use photo vision with color and you want to do that kind of thing, then how do you make that look nicer? And there are people that will jump on and help you. They're very, very helpful on the forum. So if you'd like to, you're welcome to. This one though is very helpful. Most computer programs, I always laugh about, like Microsoft in Windows, for example, if you have an internet problem and you go to the help menu and it says connect to our website to troubleshoot. And it's like, I don't have an internet connection. What are you talking about? And that's my typical experience with computer help programs. In Cabinet Vision though, it actually is very helpful. You can click on this help topics and there's a ton of stuff in here. So if we want to ask walls, I'll just say, in fact, let's type drawing walls. If I need a refresher, it's going to come up with everything that kind of meets that description. Here's one that looks like it might be it. Yeah, this is what I want. I want to know how to draw walls. It'll go through, explain the toolbars. It explains how they work. There's something we didn't talk about, how to do an angle calculator. You can find out how to do that. Different hatching for your walls. Interesting. I didn't even know you could specify your stud spacing. If any of you are that interested in how the studs are spaced in your walls, I guess you're more than welcome to. I've never done that, but anyway, it tells you how all the tools work. So the help menu is very big. If you were to print this help menu, if you come into here, and I tried it one time, I actually pushed print and it came up, and it's something like 4,000 pages long. So don't push print unless you have an unlimited supply of paper. But the search in here is very, very helpful. You can find all kinds of answers in here. In fact, I would always recommend using this help topics first before you even call me, because a lot of times you'll find it very, very easily in here. That said, don't hesitate to call me if you do have a question. A lot of times people will call me and say, I just can't remember how you put a finished end on a cabinet. And I'll say, well, you just right click on it, go down, finished end, right. And I can walk you through in about that much time on a lot of problems. So don't hesitate to call me, but a lot of things are very, very easy from the help menu. This ribbon bar from the plan view only. Notice if I go to my elevation view though, we'll click on that cabinet and go to that wall's elevation. You may not have noticed the change here, it's pretty subtle, but it's this window right here. Before in plan view, that is my room selector. When I'm in elevation, that tool changes to my wall selector. So wall 2, wall 3, wall 4. Notice my wall ends Wall number 1 is a green wall end. It does not show here. And remember our really goofy smiley face with his bad hairpiece. This is one other tool that is available here that's not from the plan view is this lock. What I want to show you here is how Cabinet Vision auto numbers things. Notice cabinet number 1, cabinet number 2, cabinet number 3. Well, let me back up. The way the wall numbering works, whatever your first wall is, the first base cabinet or base object on that wall on the left side of that wall will be item number 1, and it's going to go through those base cabinets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The appliances should not get a number. In fact, in your reports, it should show up here as item number 0. Our appliance, our windows, our doors, any of those kind of accessories. That's another red flag that these are not. That's not part of. We're not sending you this wolf range with this kitchen. Hopefully, everybody knows that already. Let's see. All right, so numbering though, if I insert a cabinet or I move a cabinet, the numbering will shift on you. If I add wall cabinets in here, for instance, notice this one went wall number or cabinet number 4 over here. Now this cabinet became cabinet number 5, and I can see that. Oops, I can see that numbering up here in the corner as well. If I add more wall cabinets, we're going to break fire code here and put wall cabinets right above our range. You can see how the numbering sequences. What's important here is that numbering starts on the first wall, the lowest numbered wall in this room. Then it goes to the next wall. So in this case, this is cabinet number 11, 12, 13. But if I were to copy that wall cabinet, watch cabinet 11, 12, and 13 when I paste this. It's going to paste in place. Now those change to 12, 13, 14. And it will do that throughout the whole room. In fact, down through, if you have 15 jobs in this room, it'll renumber the entire order. Cabinet numbers do not ever overlap. You cannot have a cabinet number 10 in room 1 and a cabinet number 10 in room 2. The numbering is sequential. So now, that said, I can come in here and a couple of things. I can right click on a cabinet and pick properties and lock that cabinet's number, which is not super common to do, but sometimes you have a specific reason to do that. So you can lock that cabinet's number, or I can say lock all cabinet numbers. So now if I copy and paste, of course it's yelling at me because it's saying I'm too close to the corner, but I'm going to hold my control key and force it just to illustrate this. Notice that turned into cabinet number 18, not cabinet number 10 or cabinet number 11 like we'd think it would. That's because we locked the room. I'm not sure what will happen if I unlock that. Let's see what it does here. Let's just resize. I bet you resizing changes it. Yep, it did. So now that it's unlocked, now it goes back to traditional numbering strategy. So that's the big difference in your elevation view. Pretty much everything else is exactly the same in your elevation views. I've been drawing from plan view, but really you can draw from your elevation views just fine. That's elevation view. 3D view is pretty self-explanatory, but you will see that our tools up here change again. Notice we lose the job, the room, the modifications, the measure. You cannot measure anything in 3D. You can't change anything about the room. In fact, you can change very little about the drawing. You can change the render mode, what layer you're looking at it in, those kinds of things. But that's about it. You can't actually model in 3D like you can with, say, Google SketchUp or something. It won't let you do that in 3D. Some additional buttons that are here though. Rotate is the default tool, so if I click in the middle of my screen, I can move it around. Notice it loses my colors when I do that. If I let go, it will refresh. There is a setting, right click properties. I can say change to line drawing on view move. I leave that because if I don't, let's set it that way. There, you can kind of see, I don't know if it translates through over the webinar, but it is much choppier. It makes your system move much slower. And on really complex layouts, that will really kick your tail. So I would always recommend leaving that on. So then it turns to this line view. It's much faster to move around than it re-renders for you. So that's rotate. Move is just what it says. You can pan it around. Bird's eye will just change you to a default bird's eye mode, but then you can, oh, I'm still on my move tool. I'm going to go back to rotate around. I can also, by the way, notice I'm on my rotate tool, so my left mouse button will still rotate, but my center mouse button will pan. So that's just the same as move. So I really don't ever change these. I always leave it on rotate and just pan if I need to with my center mouse button. Enhance is a feature that I don't ever use. I'll show it to you just so you can see it, but in fact it's not even doing anything. You can't even tell in this drawing. Basically, if I right click and say properties and go to enhancements, I can enhance my lighting or dithering, how it tessellates lines that are on an angle, smooth things a little more or less, that kind of a thing. That's really nice for when you're going to photo vision, for example, but I don't ever use enhance. Some of you may want to, and you're welcome to. I don't personally, though. This one, though, it looks like you can't do anything with this. I can't click on it. Nothing works here for me right now. What this is our camera lock. So if I get a camera angle that I like, I can come in here and say save camera, and we'll call this kitchen 1. So now in this window I can go back to kitchen 1. So right now I don't have anything selected, so I can pan around however I want, but I can always go back to kitchen 1. And notice it says lock orientation. I cannot, if I click in here, it won't let me move anything. I can uncheck lock orientation, and then now I can. But if I go back to kitchen 1, it resets my view and is locked again. This one is basically for deleting cabinet or cameras, safe cameras is all. I really don't ever use that tool. And again, you have access to the object tree, but we're going to skip that. So, reports view. This view, you should all have this tab. I think yesterday I said that some of you won't have this tab. You will all have this tab. The difference is that some of you will have more or less options on this sidebar. You should all have order entry, so you can come in and do an order line item entry. Just type in BD3. And in this case, it doesn't know where the BD3 is because it doesn't know which cabinet we're looking at. So I'm going to come in here. Let's try that again. There, it found it. So that's order entry. We'll delete that cabinet here. That's order entry mode. Bid center we're going to come back to. I'm going to skip it for now, but well, let's show you really fast. If I just click on bid center, basically it's gathering up all the parts and pieces, the labor, everything that it takes to make this cabinet. I'm going to show this right now. I'll reiterate later when we cover the bid center. Always, 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 always remember, for now, you have to come in here to rate tables and manually check materials and setups. This is super critical. If you do not, this price will not include your materials for the job. You can see that jumped about $3,000. The materials are a big chunk of the price. Hopefully in version 9 we will have this to where you do not have to check that automatically or manually. It will be automatic, but for now you always have to check materials and setups. And the drawing discount you're welcome to do also. That is used when you actually draw a job. If you do not draw the job, if you just do a ghost item entry for a quick bid, do not take the drawing discount. It's a pretty small amount, but it can add up. For example, on this kitchen, it's $150 discount on it just for drawing it. So that's to try to encourage you to do drawings. We would always rather see drawings rather than an order entry. You're welcome to turn in an order entry if you like. You just can't take that drawing discount. It may be a little faster for you, but you also have the downside that it's harder for us to proofread, so you may have mistakes in your order that we didn't catch, you didn't catch, and ultimately you'll be the one that has to pay for the replacement parts. So I recommend drawing them always. So that's the bid center. The report center is where we will differ. Some of you will have this, some of you will not. I wish this was in everybody's system. This basically is how we cut list. I'll show you this really quickly. If I come in here, I can go and print a door list for this cabinet. for this job. So this is a list of all of our doors, the door style, the wood, the finish, the cabinet it goes to, the size of the door, size of the panel, the size of the stiles and rails. This is our actual cut list that we print to give to the shop. Obviously, you don't need that information, but there is a report in here called an order summary. This is one that most of you have seen. If you have the report center, you should be able to generate this order summary on your own. If you cannot generate this order summary, then give me a call sometime after the webinar, and we'll get this report working on your system. If you have a seat of solid drafter, the report center here, the report center is only available on solid advanced or solid ultimate. We have solid ultimate. About half of you have solid advanced. The other half of you have solid drafter. Solid drafter is about $1,000 less than solid advanced, so it's pretty expensive upgrade, and really all you get out of it is this report center. It's really nice to be able to come in and print that order summary yourself, but for those of you that don't have it, just call me and send me the order. I will print this order summary to PDF and send it back to you. So there's really not, unless you really want that report summary for yourself, it's probably not worth the $1,000 to you. But wall elevations are something that is used. I'll show you really briefly. We'll come back to it later when we do drawings, but I'm going to come in here and just say, let's select all those walls, and I'm going to say put it on 11 by 17 paper and convert it to drawing. We'll just say okay. What that did is it just gave me 3 pages of drawings. It automatically placed them on my drawing page. Dimensions and the works is all here rendered for me. It's a pretty quick, easy way of doing that. That's used. I use it sometimes. There's some other methods though that you might like better. So that is just one way of doing it, is the wall elevations mode. The drawings tab you'll have. Again, we're not going to really talk about that today, though, I don't think. S2M Center, I will show you this very quickly just so you understand from our perspective what happens. Some of you have been to our shop and have seen this process, but for those that haven't, we'll show you. S2M Center basically goes through and lists all of the parts and pieces of the job, even down to every door, left style, right style, flat panel, the flat fillers, the cabinet parts themselves. There's a whole bunch of door information here. Now we're into cabinet parts, tops, bottoms, unfinished ends, and I see the size of the part and the melamine or the veneer or the solid wood that it's using. What we use this screen for is to go to our CNC machine. So if I want to optimize this, I'm going to just do this really quickly just so you can see how we operate. It just optimized the whole job. So in my white melamine, this job needs 14 sheets of white melamine, and it sets them on my pages. The CNC machine will go through, drill these holes in exactly this location. What's important to recognize is what you see in your drawings is what we're going to machine. So if you see a bunch of shelf pin holes that are really screwy in your cabinet, it's worth asking us about, saying, why is this there? We proofread every cabinet before we send it to the machine anyway, so 99% chance that we're going to catch that. But if you see it, generally that's a red flag that somebody needs to talk about this. So most of the time it works just fine. In fact, very seldom will that ever even come up. But if you do see something weird, by all means, let us know. Basically, you can see, though, exactly what we're going to be cutting. So each of the different types of sheets. So that's the S2M Center, but like I said, you don't have to really worry about it. So draw a wall on that. This time I'm not going to pick any of these. I'll just hit next and finish just so we can get through it quickly. Cabinets, base cabinets, and we'll just put a standard B cabinet on the wall. Okay, what is important to recognize here is what Cabinet Vision thinks a cabinet is. If I click on that cabinet, I see a dotted line rectangle around it. That rectangle represents sort of a bounding box, a three-dimensional, it's an imagined space in this imagined room, if that makes sense. That object contains parts and pieces. It contains a back, it contains a left end, a right end, a top, a bottom, two doors, some hinges, some door pulls. Those things are all contained as part of this cabinet container. If I talk about a cabinet in Cabinet Vision, it might be an actual cabinet box proper, a real cabinet. It might, though, be a filler. Let's see. If I put a filler on here, notice my cabinet box is this rectangle. It's 610 deep. Fillers come in default the same depth as the cabinet, so that if I put it right next to the cabinet, you see those things line up with each other. So in this case, yeah, it's just a filler, it's molding, but we may refer to that as the width of the cabinet. 152 millimeters, 6 inches is the width of the flat filler cabinet. I know that that's not a cabinet in the way you would normally think of a cabinet box, but the way Cabinet Vision refers to it, though, that is an object or a cabinet. It's an item that gets a number in the system. It's an empty container. Well, it's not empty. It's a container that contains, in this case, 2 boards. In a cabinet, you have multiple boards in it. You have pieces of edge banding. You have dowels. You have hardware. All of those things. Hopefully that makes sense. So that is a cabinet object. Now, we're going to have this is the daily exercise that I get. We're all going to do this together. So everybody take your right hand and hold it in front of your face with your palm facing towards you. Now, close your hand into a fist, except for extend your thumb out to the right and your index finger straight up. Then extend your middle finger about halfway so it's pointing straight at you. Okay. Hopefully everybody's got that, and we all look really stupid holding our hands out in front of us. So, all right. So this is called the right hand rule in Cabinet Vision. The right hand rule is to tell us our X, Y, and Z axis. So your thumb represents the X axis going left to right. Your index finger represents the y-axis going up and down. Your middle finger represents the z-axis or going in and out. Also, if you look on my screen down here towards the bottom corner, you'll see those x, y, and z axes. So if I go to my elevation view, I will see the x and the y and the z trade places. And actually, I don't even see it there. That's interesting. It should show up right here. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway. What is important to remember is there are some parameters in Cabinet Vision, and you won't have to use this stuff, but this is sort of like understanding the simple math so you can do the more complicated math. You're never going to go back and use, well, I guess you do use math. Reading skills, maybe, it would be a better analogy. You need to know your alphabet and phonics before you can actually put words together and read. You won't actually go through and sound out the words anymore. You're just going to read them once you know how. But I want you to understand how this concept works. In Cabinet Vision, there is a hierarchy of objects, and this is really important to understand, and it's not going to fully make sense until you get into the system a little bit more. The hierarchy starts at the job level. So the job name here is Smith. Smith is going to apply to every step of the hierarchy below the job level. So room 1, 2, and 3, this is the Smith kitchen, the Smith bathroom, and Smith whatever random room 3 is. So job level number 1, room level is the second step down the tier. So in the room level, if I have a room level setting, say my wood or my finish or my door style, any of those things will affect everything within this room only. It will not affect anything in these rooms. So if I change the door style for room 3, it does not change the door style for room 1 or 2. Seems pretty straightforward. Now the cabinet is the next step down. Actually, technically, we could say there's a wall level in the hierarchy. We kind of usually skip that, but let's say there is a wall level in there. So that wall is a wall within room 3. In this case, we only have one wall, but if I were to draw another wall there and another wall there, now I have 3 walls in room 3. So again, if I go to the object tree, this is where you really see this hierarchy, is room 3. Under room 3, I have 3 walls. Under wall 1, I really don't have anything because nothing's attached to it. I have the front and the back face of the wall. Wall 2, though, I have a plus sign showing here, so that is my cabinet. Okay, so cabinet is the next step down the hierarchy. So that cabinet is going to follow the specifications listed for this room because it's lower down the food chain. So anything below this level of room will mimic whatever the room specifications are. Now, if I change something on the cabinet level, for instance, I override a door on this cabinet, that door override will stick. Even if I go back and now change my room, say I override the door and we have naughty alder in the room, and I go back and section my door. I add multiple mullions in it or a glass panel or something like that. I have overridden that door. Or a drawer box or a drawer front would be a better example, where I have a narrow rail middle drawer, a wide rail bottom drawer, and a block front. I have overridden several of those drawer fronts. By so doing, I have disrupted this hierarchy. So what will happen is if I change the room, door style or wood, any overrides I've done to this cabinet will not change to follow the room. They will stick to my override. So you have to be very careful if you've overridden drawer fronts. Let me show you what I mean by this. So if I put let's put a BD3 out. Oh, of course it did it again here. All right, 3 drawer bank. We'll make it bigger. Notice I have block fronts selected in here. That's just because I went over that very quickly in my room setup. Let's actually pick a door style here, Amherst, and we'll pick the narrow rail one like I've been telling you all to do. And we'll do a number 5 edge. I'm not going to worry about the wood or the panel detail at this point. Now let's do base, so an A panel and an A drawer panel. And I didn't check my upper because I'm not going to worry about those right now. All right, so now the whole point of the override concept is I don't like the way these narrow rails look on these drawer fronts. So I'm going to section that door. We'll cover this sectioning later, but I'm going to show you very quickly right now to illustrate this override issue. I'm going to section this drawer front, and I'm going to change those narrow rails to 2.5 inches, just like the styles are. I'm going to do that on both of these doors. And for those that have not seen Cabinet Vision, you can do this to any door style. You can change styles and rails. You can add center mullions. You can do whatever you want. So that's more commonly what we would see in a cabinet like this. That's fine to do this. The only problem is now if I come back, and in fact, let me go into the cabinet level first to show you this. Reports, I'm going to sort this. If I look here, I have 1 Amherst drawer front that is alder and 2 of them that are also alder. These are the 2 bottom. You see the bigger size there. So let me back out to my room level. Now what I'm going to do though is change my room, and I never did pick this one, but let's say we change to cherry. Now I'm going to change this to cherry. This is another common thing you see in Cabinet Vision too. These should be in alphabetical order. Sometimes it jumbles them. I have asked repeatedly for them to get that fixed, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So we're going to change our drawer front to cherry. Okay. Don't really see anything change right here. If we had our texture mode on, yeah, that kind of illustrates it better. This is one valid use of the texture mode. I can see that my top drawer front changed, and these two doors here are different, but these two are the way they used to be. They're still cherry, or still alder, excuse me. If I go in here to the cabinet level and look at my reports and sort it again, now I have 2 of them that are alder and 1 that is cherry. That's because I overrode that drawer front and this drawer front. Hopefully that makes sense. And that'll become more important and make more sense as we continue into things, and the more used to Cabinet Vision you get. But that hierarchy is very, very important. Now back to the XYZ. First thing is object classification. This is a base cabinet, and back to the cabinet object here, we know that this has a rectangle around it. This is classified as a base cabinet, so it's going to be attached to the floor, unless I change its elevation, which you can do, but most of the time you don't. A wall cabinet, on the other hand, well, actually, let me do another base cabinet. A base cabinet, if I take a base cabinet and an existing base cabinet and I try to put it right over the top of each other, it's not going to let me. In fact, in this case, it automatically shifted it to one side or the other. If I was a little bit more to the right side, it would have shifted to the right side. It knows two base cabinet objects cannot occupy the same space, so it does not allow that. The same thing goes for a tall cabinet. If I go back here to tall cabinets and I try to place it over the top of this one, it's going to automatically move to the side. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Wall cabinets, so I'm going to place this one from the plan view. Wall cabinets, if I come in here, doors, wall cabinet, and I try to place that over the top of this tall cabinet, it's not going to let me right here. On this side, it's going to place it, but it's going to shift it automatically to the side. So Cabinet Vision keeps track of what type of objects these are: a tall, a base, a wall. There's some other sort of less significant categories. There's a vanity category, there's an upper deck category that means a wall cabinet that sits above. In fact, we can grab it right now, a wall upper deck. So if I take that and place it right over the top of this cabinet, it's going to snap above my soffit. So typically wall cabinets will snap to my soffit line, wherever I told that on this wall. Soffit is 152, so that's why this wall cabinet snaps to 152 down from the ceiling. The upper deck cabinet will snap above the soffit line. Hopefully that makes sense. Tall cabinets and base cabinets and vanity cabinets will all snap to the floor level. There's some other categories also that will, like a pencil drawer for instance, is really a base cabinet, but what it does is it snaps to underneath the countertop height. The only reason that's important for you to know is that sometimes Cabinet Vision is you're going to want to try to place an object. For instance, a little bun foot. If you try to put a furniture foot or a little furniture balance under here, Cabinet Vision is going to want to yell and scream at you and say you can't do that, because the furniture balance or that bun foot is, I'll just pick one here, furniture base. I'll just pick one. I'm going to try to place it there. It won't let me. There are some tricks to make it allow it. What I usually do is I place it below, then I hold my control key, put it in place. Now what I'm going to do is, let's take this cabinet is 226 from the sidewall. This one I want it to be, I want about a 10 millimeter reveal, so we're going to call it 216. Now I also know that all of these cabinets, 534, I did change that one, 549, 534. So if I want to change that, I can say 534 plus 539 plus 534 plus a 10 millimeter reveal on the left plus a 10 millimeter reveal on the right. I'm going to expand to the right. That resized my furniture base. Now what I'm going to do is change my elevation and go up. Now it let me do that. Oops, and it looks like I didn't do all my maths right. I needed another 10 millimeters in width. Oh, now it's going to yell at me because it says there are cabinets in the way. You can't do that. So the way to fix this is to take that object, elevation, I'm going to go minus 500 just to drop it down. Then I'm going to add my 10 millimeters back into it to the right. However, I did that math wrong. And back to 0 on my elevation. Now I have a furniture base around those cabinets. Now, obviously, this isn't exactly right because I haven't changed the front depth of it, and this side I need a toe recess and some other things to make this really work. But I just wanted to show you that Cabinet Vision can sometimes confuse one base or a tall object with another base object that in real life you know that it will work, but Cabinet Vision thinks these are two base cabinets. They will not work. So sometimes you have to sort of get a bigger hammer, I guess is the word. You can force it in there if you pound it hard enough. This is a round peg in a square hole. Cabinet Vision can be made to do those things. It just sometimes will be moody with you and tell you you can't. cabinets, we've talked so far, and I have kind of briefly mentioned a time or two about a room level versus cabinet level. If we are on the plan or elevation view or this 3D view, and you see walls, you see your layout, pretty obvious we're on the cabinet or on the room level, I can see what room number I'm in right here. The cabinet level is for several different things, and we can talk about it really briefly today. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll cover it more in depth. But I can either select a cabinet, then right-click on it and pick Edit, or I can just select the cabinet and then double-click that cabinet. Same end result. It takes me to the cabinet level. Notice my ribbon bar is different in here. I do not have room selections. If I go to my plan view, I don't, oops. Also notice I have a face, plan, and end. So I can see the end of my cabinet. I can see a 3D version of my cabinet. I can spin it around just like I can a room. I can see, in this case, every dowel hole, every shelf pin hole, hinges, just so that everybody is clear. What I see in this drawing is what we will build. So if you draw something that is very obvious to us that it is impossible, for instance, if there's a fixed shelf in the middle of this and there's a hinge right in the middle of that fixed shelf, we'll move that hinge out of the way. If you draw something in this cabinet that is possible, albeit weird, it may be unusual, we may or may not question you on it. We get some very strange requests because of the custom nature of our cabinets. So we get some very strange requests at times. So if we see something in there that's a big red flag to us, we will probably call you in a pre-production or from a cut listing perspective and say, hey, did you really mean to do this? If it is not out of the ordinary, or is even, we can kind of get why, yeah, I can see that that's possible to do that. So we may let it go. So be very, very careful what you customize in this view. A couple of other things about this view. 3D, just like the room, I cannot customize anything in 3D. I can just click on it and move. That's it. End view, plan view, and face view. These three, again, we have our corny guy with his bad hairpiece. Is that our bad haircut? I'm not sure which it is, but either way, it's bad. These three views should only be used for viewing. You should not ever click on a part. Like I can click on that part. Remember we had cabinet level and then down to the part level. In my system, I can click on that part and I can actually double click it and go to the part level or to the operation level. This is telling me about each of these holes. In fact, I can come in my system and let's do a hole right here in the middle of our cabinet, and I'm going to change it to be 5 inches wide, and wherever it's located, doesn't matter. If I come back out here, I see that hole in the top of my cabinet. Our machine will actually physically cut that hole in the top of this cabinet. It won't even question it, it'll just cut it. So again, you do not have access to that part level or to the operation level. Just know that what you see in this cabinet level is what you're going to get. So that's the face, the plan, and the end view. With very, very few exceptions will you ever, almost never will you change something in the cabinet from these views. In fact, if you do, just like an override that we talked about earlier, you can override this part. I can override this finished end. So if I tell this finished end to be 36 inches wide, my cabinet's going to start getting really weird really fast. The problem now is, obviously that's kind of a ridiculous example, but if I change the depth of this cabinet now to 12 inches, I have killed the intelligence on this part, and notice it stays out there at whatever depth I put it at. So you can start really messing things up by changing these. Notice my hole there, that's pretty awesome. Now it's kind of half a hole. Interestingly enough, in our machine, when this is nested, if there's another part sitting right here in the nest, it will cut that hole through the roof of this cabinet and through whatever this part is. Doesn't matter what it is, it'll still cut it. So it's always a good time. Alright, so that's kind of showing you the cabinet level. I'm going to delete that crazy cabinet. Couple of things you can do from the cabinet level and from the room level on individual cabinets. Right click on, when we talk about edit, we go to the cabinet level.
Edit shape is one that sometimes we'll use, although I would always recommend calling the shop for that one. That's to do both front doors. And if you ever edit the shape of a cabinet, there will always be pricing mods that have to go on that cabinet. It will not price correctly if you edit its shape. So that's one that, if you learn how to do it, sure, you can do it, but it's not going to price for you exactly. Let's see. Combine, I would avoid this one. That's when you have a loose toe and a cabinet. I would avoid that. You can split them so that it splits the toe kick out as a separate object. That's possible, although we don't do those very often. Same with detached toe, not done very often. Finished ends is really the biggest thing you'll use from this, and you can either pick none, left, right, or both. So I'll just pick right in this case. So put that finished end on. That's about it from the plan view in a right-click menu. A wall cabinet, for instance, and I want to extend my doors down. Now I'm in the sectioning mode, but only on this cabinet. If I click here, nothing really happens. So the way to transfer that sectioning mode to the other cabinet is to double-click on this cabinet when I'm in another cabinet sectioning mode. So I can click on that door now. Now it's bottom. Let's take them down 2 inches or 51 millimeters. Now this is a good example of what I was just talking about. See that hinge? It's right in the middle of the bottom of our cabinet. This actually will resolve itself here shortly, but if we were to see that on a job, we would move those hinges up. You don't have to worry about the machining and the engineering of a cabinet. Most all of that should be done automatically based on your drawings. Now in this case, you may see that from this view and go, oh shoot, that looks like a hinge there. When I go to the cabinet level of this cabinet, it always will trigger a rebuild, which means Cabinet Vision is going to rethink itself on this cabinet. It's going to refresh, I guess you'd say, this cabinet. I can either go to the cabinet level to do that, or with it selected, I can just hit my Enter key on my keyboard twice. Notice the hinge moved in this case. What happened is we extended those doors down. There's a program running in the background of Cabinet Vision that is going to move those hinges to the proper location. It just hasn't had a reason to rerun that program. So by hitting Enter twice, or by going to the cabinet level by right-clicking Edit or double-clicking the cabinet, that same thing would have happened. So here I can, again, before we talked about not ever changing anything in the face plan or end view. The section view is really where you'll change things in a cabinet. I'm going to come in here to this cabinet. I don't really want 2 inches. I'm going to go 1.5 inches. I'm going to change that cabinet here. The section view, you can do all the same things you can out on the room view. There's some additional things here though, and we'll talk about those on Friday, but just really quickly, to kind of as a teaser, I'll show you I can section a door. So we're going to take this and tell it, instead of a raised panel, we're going to turn it to a glass panel, and then I'm going to put a horizontal mullion, and I want that mullion to be, let's call it a little bigger than that, 76 millimeters. This top one, now let me exit back out of here. We're going to make this cabinet even wider. Let's go 3 foot wide. So now I have more door to work with. So my bottom, I'm going to turn it to a raised panel. My top is still a glass panel, but now I'm going to put some mullions in here and make these glass panels. Like that. Now I've customized this door. It'll allow you to do whatever customizations you want on any door. I can change the size of these parts. I can change their location. Real common use for that is a big wainscot deco on the back of an island or something. You can change how those panels are separated. You can put a great big wide center mullion for your corbel if you have a big corbel that wants to sit on it. You can change those kind of things. The section in our catalog, you'll notice how these sections are all subdivided. We do not have a printed paper catalog yet. It's being worked on. It's very, very close. It's going to be set up very similarly to this. In fact, some of you, I may have released a kind of a beta version of it. If you do not have the beta version of this catalog and would like it, email me after this webinar and I'll send it to you. I want to show you though kind of what it looks like
just so you're aware of it. So here we are, cabinets. So under my cabinet section 1, base cabinets section 1.1 with doors is 1.1.1. Okay, so these are all the cabinets available there in the catalog, and these are all separate PDFs right now. Let's see, actually it might be, I do have it combined here now. Okay, so here is what the catalog will look like. You can come in here and go, it's going to give you some basic construction methods. Then it's going to go through section 1.1 and show you each of the individual cabinet types and some specifications about them. How many shelves are included? Is it a melamine interior? Or is it a finished veneer interior? All of those kind of things. That was all of section 1.1. That's all the cabinets in there. So 1.1.2 is base cabinets with a drawer. So again, here in Cabinet Vision 1.1.2, those are all the cabinets that are going to be noted in this portion of the PDF. So that will continue on down through all of the cabinets, and these are pretty long. Like here's 154 pages just in the cabinet types. So lots of options here for you. This will be very helpful when we get it out. I'm sorry we don't have it right now. We can send out the beta version of it. It's an unproofread, unedited version, so pardon the spelling errors and typos and other kooky stuff. Fillers, I want to make sure we hit that more in depth tomorrow, but I think we all know what fillers are. You have two different versions, solid wood or veneer. The only differentiation between these is that if you have solid wood doors on your job, you want to use the solid wood fillers. If you have a veneer slab door on your job, you want to use veneer fillers. They will differ in their name. If I come in here, they'll all have a -V in the name. So it's a flat filler style filler veneer combo. This is a base filler, a wall filler, and a tall filler. You'll see this parentheses and the classification. This goes back to the cabinet container I talked about earlier, a base cabinet versus a tall cabinet or a wall cabinet. A base cabinet's a B, a wall cabinet's a W, a tall cabinet's a T. In fillers, though, it's just a flat filler style filler. So we have a different classification for base fillers versus wall fillers versus tall fillers. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's fillers. So that's fillers. Assemblies and components is a very big section, and that would take 2-hour seminar just to cover this section probably and how it's used. Basically, this section is all of the strange stuff, the extra fluff that you might have on a job. Little angled column boxes. It might have straight boxes with a deco on the end of it for on the end of your island next to a dishwasher. Box shelves. We do a lot of these lately, these floating shelves on walls. Let's see what other ones are common. Coat racks are fairly common. I'll put one of these on here just to illustrate it really quickly. Put it on the back of the wall actually. Coat racks, I can change the size of the coat rack to whatever I want. Notice there's only one peg in it. This is one of those objects that I was talking about earlier with sidebars. So here I can say, let's put 6 pegs in this, and we can space those out a little bit more. We'll go 5 inches in between pegs, so I can space that out. There's lots of what I would call smart objects in Cabinet Vision. This is one of them. It's there's some really cool stuff you can do with them. There's plate racks. There's wine accessories for hanging stemware, all kinds of stuff like that are smart objects like that. So coat racks is one of them. Columns is another pretty commonly used one. Column left or right, so that one's one that would go into the wall and you'd float it out outset. I would say 610 is the depth of my cabinet plus the depth of my door minus the depth of this object. So it would sit about like that in a room and then against the wall. So columns are pretty common. Anyway, there's lots of different things. Furniture bases, face frames, flyovers and bridges. Hoods, this section is not filled out yet. If you ever have a custom hood, we'll have to add it in for you. Pilasters, backsplashes, shelves with solid wood edges on them, all those kind of things are in this assembly. Molding is just what it says. You have all the different flavors of molding here, and most of these you're going to do on a reports view order entry.
Some people will put them on the back of the wall like I've done these, but I don't recommend doing that. I'd recommend putting them in your reports view. It's a little cleaner for your drawing. Countertops, now these are only solid wood tops, veneer wood tops, or butcher block tops, and we do have a bunch of those in there. There's multiple thicknesses, different woods in the butcher blocks. In your solid wood tops, it's just generic wood top because this is going to mimic whatever wood or finish you have in your room. The butcher blocks are more of a cutting surface, so you can be wood specific in those, whatever you want. That's countertop. That's countertops. Doors and deco panels. Here we have a bunch of categories. Just loose decos for applying to the sides of cabinets. If I want to apply one to the face of a wall, like a wainscot panel, the Deco B or Deco base would be what I want. Deco base left is going to be on the left side of a cabinet. This is going to be on the right side of a cabinet. So this nomenclature back here will not only tell you if it's a base, a wall, or a tall, but it'll also tell you if it's a flat face application, a left side application, or a right side application. Hopefully that makes sense. We can kind of detail that further. That's doors and decos. Drawer boxes and rollouts are really only used if you're ordering them after the fact. You're ordering for a reface job or something, you need to order 10 drawer boxes. The drawer boxes are already included in the cabinets, and we'll show Friday how to add rollout trays. Flat panels, we have veneer or melamine or MDF. So if I come in here, I can do a 3/4, half-inch, quarter-inch, or just paper-packed veneer. I can do good two-side, good one-side. So these are just for ends of fridge panels. They might be as a backsplash between your countertop and underneath your uppers. It might be a skin that goes underneath your upper cabinets. Any of those things are flat panels of veneer. Legs and feet are just what it says. You have some turned legs. There's square legs in here. We have some bracketed feet that are kind of cool. That these kind of furniture base. You see those used on kind of more ornate vanities, things like that.